Too often as athletes, our weekly schedules look too similar week to week. We do the same workouts on Monday, the same workouts on Tuesday, the same volume on Wednesday, and we end up not seeing progress simply because we're just giving our body that same overload week after week after week. And if you're not progressing and if you're not finding some peaks of fitness throughout the year, looking at volume variability, or in other words, deloading, is a great place to start. For most climbers, there is a weekly structure. Our entire society is built on getting to work on Monday, working through Friday, and then getting a couple of days off on the weekend. Whether you have that particular structure or a different one, most of us fall into a structure of doing the same styles of workouts on specific days. That might be due to schedule with our family. It might be due to schedule with training partners. It might be due to availability at the gym. But a really critical aspect of training is finding that way to overload not just a specific boulder problem, but the overall volume and intensity of our training. It's really important that we assess our progress in our training. Am I getting stronger in the weight room? Am I doing harder boulders? Am I doing slightly more volume? And am I recovering and handling that stuff? If I'm not hitting the numbers I want in the gym, if I'm not hitting the volume of training I want to do, looking at the variability of my training or the amount of training I do is one of the easiest ways to start fixing those things. For example, an average climber might train and climb 5 hours a week. And they do that week after week after week after week. And the body gets adapted to just hanging out at that same level. But then when they get to go on a big climbing trip and they've got unlimited time at the crag, they'll find themselves unable to raise themselves to that level. The other end of that is training at that 5 hours a week, week after week after week, can leave us just at this performance plateau in our training. And it's really essential that we figure out a way to vary the amount of training we're doing so that we can improve upon what our output is when we're at the gym. Hey climbers, I know that Climbstrong is a coaching company, and I feel like we've got the best coaches in the business. I also think that we have the best training programs in the business, and we put all of those up on our training platform, and you can check it out for just $12 a month. This is going to let you, as a self-coach climber, build the program that you want, that's going to lead you to better results, and we've got great tracking metrics and everything else on there, so go check it out. If we look across a 4-week training cycle, an average climber would do 25% of their training for that block each week. Week 1 would be 25% of your volume, week 2, 25%, week 3, 25%, week 4, 25%. There's no variability in that, and so performance is really likely to plateau. A super simple way of addressing this would be to do slightly more volume on weeks 1 through 3, and then half the volume on that 4th week. And this is just a classic deload. It's 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And in the classic deload, we end up looking at slightly more training than we would average for those first 3 weeks, and then about half as much on that 4th week. If we had it in percentages, each of those first 3 weeks would be around 28% of our monthly training, and then that 4th week would be down about 16%. So, somewhere around half of that. It's really essential when we look at our training that we ask a few questions. We ask, am I hitting personal bests? Am I excited and psyched for the training? And am I feeling rewarded by the training when I do it? Is it really enjoyable, or is it a grind? Do I hate going to the gym this week? All of these things start to lead us to the thought that maybe we're going stale or going flat. And so that 3 weeks on, 1 week down cycle is really, really easy to implement. Now, in this training, you can progress the intensity, you can progress the difficulty of the problems you're doing, but we're just going to keep that volume about the same for 3 weeks. And then the 4th week, drop to around half volume. On that recovery week, you can still boulder hard, you can still lift heavy, you can still go out and climb hard, but we just want about half as much total training time. There are two different tactics for taking care of this. You could reduce the duration of each of your sessions by a little bit, or you could just completely eliminate a couple of sessions from the cycle. And then you're going to be able to get back in on that next training cycle and be even stronger than you were in the previous 3 weeks. Older climbers, climbers that are training particularly hard, climbers that have a harder time recovering, or that maybe have some stress or poor sleep in their lives, they may need to change these cycles a little bit more. Another really great cycle is to do an easy week, hard week, easy week, hard week in that 4-week cycle. And so you kind of have a couple of deload weeks, but then a couple of very hard weeks. And so there's a little bit more variability there. The really cool thing about getting into a habit of creating variability in your training is that we have a little bit more bandwidth, a little bit more robustness when it comes to going really hard certain weeks and going easier certain weeks. Our body adapts to that, and then all of a sudden we'll find ourselves getting more used to doing these hard weeks and then doing okay on these easier weeks, and that up and down doesn't negatively affect our energy or our ability to perform at the crag. The fourth way of modeling this training, if we're looking at that 4-week cycle, is to do a step model where we step up for 3 weeks and then have a recovery week. And so the first week would be maybe 22% of our total volume, then a little bit more of our total volume. The third week might be 35% of our total volume for the month. And then the fourth week is that low volume recovery week. This model works really well for a lot of athletes. And the really crazy thing about this is there's so many models here, so many ideas here, and so many variations here that you can pick just about anything, and you're gonna have to look at your own experience and see how it works. The science here and the practice here is such that lots of these models work, lots of them work for certain people, lots of them don't work for certain people, and you need to find your way to what feels comfortable in your schedule and what really enhances your performance. When we think about the training, the really critical aspect, and we keep coming back to this, is that training works. If you are going to the gym regularly and you're lifting weights or bouldering or hangboarding or whatever, and you're not seeing improved performance, you're doing something wrong in the training. So the really critical thing that we do as athletes is assess what we've been doing in the gym or at the crag. Is it working? If it's not working, we start to pull it apart. Maybe it's a strength thing. Maybe it's a movement thing. But the really, really easy thing is to look at the planning and programming, because it's really not that difficult to make changes there, and we can see some really great results. So if you're plateaued, if you're not seeing the progress you want, the first thing you should try to do is to try to take a week off every 4 weeks. And that week off is just about half volume. You can keep the intensity up. See if that restarts the engine. If that doesn't do it, you can move to one of these more complex models of volume variability and see if that works for you. The really important thing that we need to bring home is that volume variability is an essential and important part of any high-level training program. So if you don't have volume variability, figure out a way to start making it happen.